The internet is certainly bound by a different set of rules. It's still largely unregulated with dark corners. In the public web, there are plenty of standards that shape the flow and ebb of conversation. But I found it interesting to explain some of these challenges to the internet using some of our most common theories, laws, and constants. For instance, the Streisand effect. Yes, as in Barbara Streisand, which is any attempt to censor information on the web will lead to that said information being widely spread. Or Poe's law. There is a point where it is difficult to distinguish extremism from satire of extremism. Murphy's law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. When applied to the internet, if you leave a comment correcting someone, there will always be a mistake in that comment that you left. Or Cunningham's law. The best way to get an answer to a question is to answer it wrongly for yourself and wait for someone to correct you. Armstrong's law. The longer a conversation goes without a mention of America, the more likely an American is to arbitrarily bring up the moon landings. And lastly, the Wadsworth constant, which states that the first 30% of any video contains no worthwhile information. So, why are these theorists and sarcasm toward the internet not proving Wadsworth constant to be true on being meaningless introductory information? It's because the internet, in all of the inevitabilities, like what I mentioned above, is transforming our lives. I'm sure you've been hearing the term digital literacy thrown around a lot the past handful of years, and it's a big deal not only to our personal lives, but to education as a whole. So, why should you care? Well, I'm going to talk about digital literacy, a 21st century trending technology that inevitably will dictate the way educators approach educating their students. So, here's what you're going to learn. Number one, what is digital literacy? Number two, why is it such a big deal in education? And number three, why are you hearing about it now? So let's start at the beginning. What is digital literacy? Digital literacy is one of those technology in the classroom buzzwords. It's everywhere, on everyone's tongue, but figuring out what it actually means can be pretty overwhelming. Literacy is simple, the ability to read and write. So digital literacy should be achieving those same two goals using technology, right? Wrong. Unfortunately, it's just not that simple. Here are a few of the definitions of digital literacy that I found. According to Cornell University, it is the ability to find, evaluate, utilize, share, and create content using information technologies and the internet. Paul Gilster, author of the Digital Literacy, understands it as the ability to understand and use information in multiple formats from a wide range of sources when it's presented via computers. On the surface, both of these are good definitions, but digital literacy is just so complicated, especially when we're talking about students who were baptized and raised in iPads and smartphones. To make it simple, I think my best definition is that digitally literate people are those who can use technology strategically to find and evaluate information. They connect and collaborate with others and produce and share original content while using the internet and technology tools to achieve many academic, professional, and personal goals. Now that we have a better understanding of digital literacy, let's move on to number two. Why is it such a big deal in education? It's because of the myth of digital natives. Many adults think that because children have been immersed in technology since a young age, they are naturally literate or skilled in using technology. The younger generations have been labeled digital natives, while older generations are then digital immigrants. The truth is that as educators, we are now teaching the I generation, where our kids are raised with technology and devices. However, just like traditional reading and writing, there is a learning curve to technology and appropriately using its features, which is where the importance of digital literacy comes in. Many educators are struggling to understand their evolving role in teaching and using technology in their classroom because, if we're honest, we are still becoming familiar with it ourselves. We all wrestle with how technology is shifting the way kids learn because we are wondering how it will shift our own lives as well. Many schools, districts, and government organizations are taking a proactive stance on devices in the hands of children and teens. Even the Obama administration created a whole website to help teachers and schools collaborate on best practices in digital literacy. Doug Belshaw, in his TEDx talk, described this issue further and explained that digital literacy is not a condition. It's not something you are or aren't. Instead, it is a threshold that affects your identity because every time you are given a new tool, it gives you a different way of impacting upon the world. He goes on to mention a key concern in regards to digital literacy. He explains how previously people have come up with digital literacy frameworks that are too simplified and insist on a linear ordering of skills, as if life were that simple. But like we covered earlier, is there only one definition? Maybe instead we need to not talk in the singular, but in the plural and refer to it as digital literacies because they are plural and context dependent. The way to develop digital literacies is to focus on people's interests and to try and get them to this intrinsic motivation to want to develop these digital skills for themselves. This easily can connect back to education in our students. So, as Belshaw describes, there is a radius of individual interest, and if there is a circle of important issues, and the place to develop these digital literacies is that overlap of these two circles, we can increase student motivation along with the important issues, which in schools is synonymous to our content information and the subject being taught. Belshaw's 8 essential elements of digital literacies include cultural, cognitive, constructive, communicative, confident, creative, critical, and civic. This gives us a good foundation in preparing ourselves to effectively communicate and develop our students. Which brings us to number 3. Why are you hearing about it now? Because technology and digital competencies are only increasingly becoming more relevant. There are already massive changes in the workplace due to globalization and technology's advances. The International Society of Technology in Education has explained that some of the most in-demand jobs didn't even exist 5 or 10 years ago, and the pace of change is only projected to accelerate. By 2020, more than a third of the core skill sets required for most jobs will include skills that aren't considered crucial today. Nearly 9 in 10 workers anticipate having to develop new skills all throughout their lives just to keep up with the changes. And the most crucial skills they'll need, according to many experts, are cross-disciplinary ones. As educators, we need to not only understand what digital literacy is and how it can apply to education, but more specifically, we need to know how to implement it in our classrooms today. Developing digital literacy curriculum is an essential skill for emerging educators to help students navigate their devices to effectively help them develop and learn content in schools. It's important to note that digital literacy is not synonymous with digital citizenship. Rather, digital citizenship is part of digital literacy, and having students know how to understand their digital footprint through social media interactions and other aspects such as cloud computing and knowing how to maximize their resources to share and collaborate with others. However, there are a variety of ways that digital literacy can be implemented into the classroom. For starters, teachers can integrate basic technology in classroom tools, like having digital devices such as laptops, iPads, Chromebooks, or desktops. Teachers can implement a class website or a blog to share activities with parents and students. And students can have digital portfolios to curate and collect student work for viewing and sharing. Digital literacy may even encompass simple student tasks such as creating classroom presentations or more intricate collaborative work such as video clip creations, posting online mind maps, and using digital tools. Students also need to learn how to roam virtual halls as they're expected to research and find credible information for their projects and their papers. Even though digital literacy is an emerging educational trend in and of itself, it includes being up to date on other innovative movements such as coding. Kelly Mendoza, who manages the professional development program for Common Sense Media's educational programs, says coding is a hot topic. It's going to be a while before your everyday teacher is actually shifting to including coding as part of their curriculum. Part of the holdup is that coding still comes across as a standalone thing. Her hope, though, is that eventually the act of coding will be viewed as a literacy and ingrained in lessons just like print literacy or media literacy. Because of the increasing prevalence of technology in our classrooms, it is essential that students are challenged to develop necessary content knowledge as well as foundational academic life skills. So, what's the skim of all of this? Why should we continue to care about digital literacy? The bottom line is that there's no way to prepare students for specific careers when we can't even fathom what those might be. Even now, some of their learned information will be outdated by the time they graduate. So instead, the key to molding college and career-ready graduates is to teach students how to live and learn at the intersections, according to the ISTE. This means students will need to become lifelong learners, and it's up to educators to ignite their curiosities while teaching them to explore the crossroads between different subjects and disciplines through further innovative and trending technologies, which will better develop their digital literacies. We live in a digital world. It's empowering if students can not just understand that, but that they can take part in it and have a place in that conversation of digital communication.